First contact and desperate alliance. The Galactic Concordat had never known failure. For 12,000 years, their civilization had expanded across the stars, bringing order and enlightenment to countless worlds. Their technology was unmatched, their diplomatic protocols flawless, their military doctrine refined to theoretical perfection. Which made their current predicament all the more horrifying. Admiral James Harrison stood at the window of Earth's orbital command, watching the alien ship approach. It resembled a massive crystalline snowflake, refracting sunlight in ways that seemed to defy physics. The vessel belonged to a species that called themselves the Meridians, and they had come to Earth not in triumph or discovery, but in desperation. They're requesting immediate clearance to dock, Lieutenant Park announced from her console. Their ambassador says it's urgent. Harrison straightened his uniform. Grant them permission. And someone wake up the UN Security Council. They'll want to hear this. The meeting took place in the station's primary conference chamber. Ambassador Vilara of the Meridians stood nearly 8 feet tall, her crystalline form catching the light in hypnotic patterns. Behind her, 2 guards remained motionless, their armor looking more like abstract sculptures than military gear. We require your assistance, Vilara began without preamble, her translator converting her harmonic speech into English. The Concordat faces extinction. Harrison exchanged glances with General Maxwell, the UN's military representative. This was not how anyone had expected first contact to go. Perhaps you should explain from the beginning, Harrison suggested. The story Vilara told seemed impossible. A species known as the Voidborn had emerged from deep space 6 months ago. They weren't just warriors, they were perfect predators, evolving and adapting with each encounter. The Concordat's mighty fleets, with all their advanced technology and precise tactics, had been systematically destroyed. We've lost 63 worlds, Vilara's voice carried a harmonic note of grief. Our weapons prove ineffective. Our strategies fail. The Voidborn learn, adapt, and overcome everything we deploy against them. And you've come to us for help. General Maxwell leaned forward. Why Earth? We're centuries behind your technology. Vilara's crystalline form shifted, creating a sound like wind chimes. Because you are different. We have observed your species for centuries. You are. She paused, searching for the right word, unpredictable. Harrison couldn't help but smile. You mean we're chaos incarnate? Precisely. Vilara projected a hologram showing various human conflicts throughout history. Your species achieves victory through means we cannot comprehend. You defy tactical logic. You succeed and victory is mathematically impossible. The Voidborn cannot adapt to what they cannot predict. The human leaders sat in silence, processing this information. Humanity, the galaxy's wild card, being asked to save an advanced civilization because they were too primitive to be predictable. What exactly are you proposing? Harrison asked. We offer an alliance. We will provide you with technology, ships, and resources. In return, we need your tactical expertise and warriors. We need. Vilara's translator seemed to struggle, human chaos. The next few hours were a blur of discussions, arguments, and hasty communications with Earth's governments. The Concordat's offer was generous, technology that would advance humanity by centuries. But the risk was enormous. The Voidborn had already proven capable of destroying civilizations far more advanced than Earth. Harrison stood again at the window, watching Earth rotate below. Vilara approached, her crystalline form reflecting the planet's blue glow. Your species is unique, Admiral Harrison, she said. Where we see order, you see possibility. Where we follow protocol, you create new paths. It terrifies us, but it may be our salvation. And if we fail? Harrison asked. Then we die together, Vilara replied simply. But I have studied your history. Humanity does not fail. You simply redefine victory until you achieve it. The agreement was signed within 24 hours. Earth would join the Galactic Concordat, not as a junior member, but as equals. Humanity would bring their unique perspective to a war that threatened all sentient life. As the first human ships were being retrofitted with Concordat technology, Harrison received a private message from Vialara. It contained only a few words: the Voidborn adapt to patterns. Show them there are no patterns to adapt to. Harrison smiled, already formulating plans that would have made any conventional military tactician have a nervous breakdown. The Voidborn thought they were the perfect predators, evolving to counter any strategy. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to win, it was their ability to change the rules of the game entirely. The war for survival was about to begin, and humanity was going to show the galaxy exactly why unpredictability was the deadliest weapon of all. The Art of Chaos. Commander Elena Winters stood before a crowd of Concordat officers, their crystalline and biomechanical forms filling the vast training arena of the Stellar Academy. After 3 weeks of preparation, it was time to show these aliens exactly why humans had been chosen for this desperate mission. Today's exercise, she announced, her voice echoing through the chamber, will demonstrate adaptive tactical response. She gestured to the holographic battlefield floating above the arena floor. Your objective is simple: survive. The Meridian officer Tal raised his crystalline appendage. Commander, we have not received the proper tactical protocols for this exercise. Elena smiled. Exactly. The simulation began. 30 Concordat officers found themselves commanding virtual ships against an enemy that kept changing its tactics every 3 minutes. The carefully organized formation of Concordat vessels quickly fell into disarray. This is impossible. Tal's harmonic voice carried notes of frustration. The enemy's behavior pattern cannot be predicted. That's the point, Elena replied, watching as the alien officers struggled. The universe doesn't follow a rulebook. Neither should we. From the observation deck, Admiral Harrison watched with Lieutenant Commander Marcus Wong, Earth's top combat instructor. They're learning, Wong observed, but slowly. They're too focused on finding patterns instead of creating opportunities. The simulation ended with a universal defeat for the Concordat officers. Elena faced her stunned audience. In real combat, the enemy won't wait for you to classify their tactical approach. They won't follow your protocols. You must learn to think beyond your training. Over the next few hours, Elena and her team demonstrated human combat techniques that made the Concordat's tactical computers crash trying to analyze them. The Meridians watched in horror as humans executed maneuvers that violated every principle of their military doctrine. You're using your ship's gravitational field as a weapon? Tal asked, his crystalline form flickering with disbelief. That violates 7 different safety protocols. Safety protocols won't matter if we're all dead, Elena replied. The Voidborn adapt to patterns. So we become the chaos they can't predict. The training sessions continued for weeks. Slowly, the Concordat officers began to understand. They watched as humans turned disadvantages into advantages, used damaged systems as improvised weapons, and created strategies that seemed to defy logic itself. The breakthrough came during a joint exercise. Tal's ship had been cornered by simulation enemies, his tactical computer declaring defeat inevitable. Instead of accepting the loss, he diverted power from his shields to his engines, used his ship's failing reactor as a makeshift EMP, and escaped through a gap that shouldn't have existed. Elena's smile could have lit up a solar system. Now you're thinking like a human. The real test came sooner than anyone expected. A Voidborn scout fleet was detected near the Proxima Centauri colony. The response force consisted of both Concordat and Earth vessels, with Tal and Elena leading the defense. The Voidborn attacked with their usual precision, their ships moving in perfect coordination. But this time, they faced an enemy that refused to play by the rules. Battle Formation Delta. Tal suggested over the command channel. Forget formations, Elena replied. Remember the chaos protocols we practiced. Everyone pick a dance partner and improvise. What followed would be recorded in Concordat military history as the Proxima Paradox. Human ships performed maneuvers that their Concordat allies had previously considered suicidal. They used asteroids as cover, solar flares as weapons, and turned their engines' electromagnetic fields into improvised disruption nets. The Concordat ships, led by Tal, began to adapt. They abandoned their traditional formations, instead creating what Elena called organized chaos. Ships moved independently but coordinated, each captain making split-second decisions based on opportunity rather than protocol. The Void-born fleet, accustomed to enemies that followed predictable patterns, found themselves facing an adversary that seemed to operate on pure randomness. Their adaptive algorithms couldn't find patterns to exploit because there were no patterns. "They're retreating," Tal announced, his voice carrying an unfamiliar tone of excitement. "We've actually driven them back." The victory celebration aboard the station was unlike anything the Concordat had ever experienced. Meridian officers, normally reserved and protocol-bound, were actually cheering. Tal approached Elena, his crystalline form glowing with what humans had learned to recognize as pride. "I understand now," he said. "What makes humans different? You don't just adapt to chaos, you embrace it. You turn it into a weapon." Elena nodded. "That's why the Void-born can't beat us. They evolved to counter patterns, but we don't give them patterns to counter. We give them chaos, uncertainty, and improvisation." Admiral Harrison, watching from his command center, knew this was just the beginning. The Concordat was learning to think differently, to fight differently. They were learning that sometimes the best strategy was to have no strategy at all. But as reports came in of larger Void-born fleets massing on the galaxy's edge, Harrison knew they would need more than chaos. They would need something that even humans hadn't tried before, something that would make today's victory look like a simple training exercise. The real war was about to begin, and this time, both humans and the Concordat would need to transcend not just their limitations, but their very understanding of what was possible. Breaking point. The Emergency Council chamber aboard the Concordat flagship, Eternal Harmony, had never seen such chaos. Holographic displays showed the devastating aftermath of the Battle of Centauri Prime, hundreds of destroyed ships, both human and Concordat, floating like cosmic debris around the now evacuated colony world. Admiral Harrison stood at the center of the chamber, his uniform still bearing scorch marks from his narrow escape. Around him, Concordat leaders argued in a cacophony of translated voices and harmonic tones. They anticipated everything, Tal reported, his crystalline form dulled with exhaustion. Every random pattern, every chaotic maneuver, they had countermeasures ready. Commander Elena Winters, sporting a bandaged arm, studied the battle recordings. "They're not just adapting anymore. They're predicting our unpredictability." The Void-born had unveiled something new in this battle, ships that seemed to phase in and out of normal space, appearing where they couldn't possibly be. Even the human tendency for chaotic warfare hadn't been enough. The enemy had evolved beyond mere tactical adaptation. Vialara, the Meridian ambassador, approached the central holographic display. "We've lost 30% of our combined fleet. At this rate, we cannot sustain." "Wait." Lieutenant Commander Marcus Wong interrupted, his eyes fixed on a particular data stream. "Playback Sector 7, Time Index 2300. The hologram shifted, showing the moment when a Void-born ship had phased through a human destroyer's shields. Wong's fingers danced across the control panel, isolating specific energy readings. "They're not teleporting or using conventional phase technology," he muttered. "They're singing to reality." "Explain," Harrison demanded. Wong highlighted several wave patterns in the data. "Look at these quantum fluctuations. They're not random, they're harmonics. The Void-born aren't just moving through space, they're resonating with the fundamental frequencies of the universe itself. Vilara's crystalline form vibrated in what humans had learned was intense interest. Like our own body's harmonic structure, but on a cosmic scale. Exactly. Wong turned to the assembled leaders. And if they're using universal harmonics, they must have a conductor, something coordinating these frequencies across their entire fleet. Elena stepped forward, her eyes lighting up with the kind of dangerous inspiration that humans were becoming famous for. Could we find this conductor if we looked for its resonance pattern? Theoretically, Tal interjected, but our sensors aren't designed to detect such subtle quantum harmonics. Harrison watched as Elena and Wong exchanged glances. He knew that look. It was the same look humans got before doing something monumentally crazy. What if we didn't try to detect it? Elena suggested. What if we disrupted the entire harmonic field of this sector of space? The Concordat leaders stared in horror. Vilara's translator struggled to convey her shock. You're suggesting we deliberately destabilize the quantum fabric of space-time? Not destabilize, Wong corrected, already running calculations. We'll create our own harmony, a countermelody to their cosmic song. Over the next hours, the combined scientific teams of Earth and the Concordat worked on what they called Project Symphony. The plan was audacious even by human standards: convert their entire remaining fleet into a massive quantum resonance array. Each ship will need to be modified, Wong explained to the engineering teams. We'll synchronize our shield generators to create a cascading harmonic wave that should disrupt the Voidborn's quantum coordination. Tal, who had been studying human music theory as part of his cultural education, suddenly straightened. Like creating dissonance in a perfect chord. And when their harmony breaks, Elena added with a grim smile, we hit them with everything we've got. The modifications took 3 days of non-stop work. Ships were torn apart and rebuilt. Shield generators were retuned to frequencies that made reality itself shiver. The Concordat engineers, once bound by rigid protocols, worked alongside humans in a frenzy of innovative collaboration. Harrison stood on his bridge, watching the combined fleet take position. Every ship had been modified, their shields humming with frequencies that shouldn't exist. Long-range sensors had detected a massive Voidborn fleet approaching, larger than the one at Centauri Prime. They'll be here in 30 minutes, Elena reported from her tactical station. All ships report ready for Operation Symphony. Vilara's image appeared on the main screen. Admiral Harrison, even if this works, will be fighting in conditions that violate the fundamental laws of physics. None of our tactical simulations can predict what will happen. Harrison smiled. Good. That means the Voidborn can't predict it either. The enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of dark stars, their ships already beginning to phase and shift in their impossible dance. But this time, the combined human Concordat fleet was ready with a performance of their own. All ships, Harrison commanded, begin the symphony. As the battle was about to begin, Tal transmitted one final message across the fleet, quoting something he had learned from human history: the sound of thunder comes not from the lightning, but from the air it tears apart. Today, we become the thunder. The space between the fleets began to shimmer as reality itself prepared for a battle unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The next few hours would either mark the beginning of the end for the Voidborn, or the last stand of two civilizations that dared to rewrite the laws of the universe itself. Operation Stormbreaker. The void between fleets erupted in impossible colors as Operation Symphony began. Every ship in the combined human Concordat fleet pulsed with energy that defied conventional physics, their modified shield generators creating a web of quantum resonance that made reality itself shudder. Quantum harmonics at full power, Wong reported from his station, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. Wave pattern is holding steady. Admiral Harrison watched as the space around them began to ripple like the surface of a disturbed pond. The Voidborn fleet, caught in mid-approach, suddenly seemed to stutter in their movement. Their perfect formation wavered as their quantum phasing abilities encountered the disruptive harmonics. "They're trying to adapt," Elena observed, monitoring the tactical display. "Their ships are attempting to shift their quantum frequencies." Tal's voice came through the command channel, his usually melodic tones tight with concentration. "Then we change our song. Execute pattern Beethoven." The modified fleet adjusted their harmonic output, creating new interference patterns that rippled through spacetime. The void-born ships began to flicker like faulty holograms, their perfect coordination breaking down as they struggled to maintain their quantum coherence. "Now," Harrison commanded. "All ships, commence attack pattern Delta 7. What followed was warfare unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human and Concordat ships moved through space that behaved more like liquid than vacuum. Weapons fire curved in impossible arcs as it passed through zones of altered physics. The Voidborn's attempts to phase through attacks failed as the quantum harmonics disrupted their dimensional shifts. On the bridge of her destroyer, Thunderchild, Elena orchestrated a ballet of destruction. Her ship's weapons had been modified to synchronize with the quantum disruption field, each shot carrying a payload of chaotic harmonics that further destabilized the enemy's quantum coherence. "Their coordination is breaking down," she reported, as three void-born ships collided with each other, unable to properly phase through space. "They can't maintain their swarm tactics." But the void-born were far from defeated. As their quantum abilities failed, they revealed new weapons, dark energy projectors that tried to tear apart the fabric of space itself. The battle devolved into a desperate struggle between two forces attempting to manipulate reality in fundamentally different ways. "Port side shields failing," Wong shouted as a dark energy beam grazed their flagship. "The quantum harmonics are starting to destabilize our own systems." Harrison gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered. "How long can we maintain the disruption field?" 20 minutes at most, Wong replied. "After that, our shield generators will burn out." Vilara's image appeared on the main screen, her crystalline form flickering with urgency. "Admiral, we're detecting a massive energy buildup in the center of their fleet. They're attempting something." The space at the heart of the Void-born formation began to twist and darken. A sphere of absolute blackness formed, growing larger with each passing second. "They're creating a quantum singularity," Tal reported, his sensors struggling to analyze the phenomenon. "If it stabilizes, it will tear apart everything within a light year." Harrison's mind raced. The Void-born were willing to sacrifice their own fleet to achieve victory. But in their desperation, they had revealed something crucial. "All ships, concentrate fire on that singularity," he ordered. "But don't try to destroy it, match its quantum frequency. Wong, calculate the harmonic resonance of their singularity and transmit it to the fleet." Understanding dawned on Elena's face. "We're going to turn their weapon against them." "Better," Harrison smiled grimly. "We're going to show them what happens when you let humans play with black holes." The combined fleet adjusted their quantum harmonics to match the frequency of the growing singularity. Instead of fighting against its pull, they enhanced it, adding their own carefully calculated frequencies to its quantum structure. "The singularity is becoming unstable," Wong reported. "But in a controlled pattern, it's working." The black sphere at the center of the Void-born fleet began to pulse with impossible energies. The enemy ships closest to it were pulled in first, their attempts to phase away rendered useless by the quantum disruption field. As each ship was consumed, the singularity's power grew, but in a way that the combined fleet could direct. "All ships, full power to engines," Harrison commanded. "Ride the quantum wake and get clear." The human and Concordat vessels surfed the waves of distorted spacetime, using the chaos they had created to their advantage. Behind them, the Void-born fleet was caught in their own trap, unable to escape the singularity they had created. 10 seconds to singularity collapse, Wong counted down. 5, 4, 3. "All ships," Harrison ordered, "shields to maximum." This is going to be. The singularity imploded with a force that seemed to make time itself hold its breath. For a moment, the entire battlefield was illuminated by energies that had no business existing in normal space. When the light faded, the void-born fleet was gone, leaving behind only scattered debris and ripples in the quantum fabric of space. As damage reports began coming in, Harrison looked around his bridge. The victory had cost them, nearly every ship would need major repairs, and the quantum harmonics had taken their toll on both crews and equipment. But they had proven something unprecedented: humans and the Concordat could work together to achieve the impossible. Tal's voice came through the command channel, carrying a note of what could only be described as awe. "We did not just defeat them, Admiral. We changed the very rules of warfare." "That's what humans do best," Harrison replied. "We don't just think outside the box, we fold it into a paper airplane and throw it into a black hole." But as the fleet regrouped and began emergency repairs, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. The quantum disturbances had revealed something they had never been able to detect before: the location of the Voidborn's home system. And it was far larger than anyone had imagined. Legacy of Fire. The war room aboard the Eternal Harmony hummed with tension as the combined fleet's leadership stared at the holographic display of the Voidborn home system. What they had discovered was beyond anything they had imagined: a massive Dyson swarm surrounding a dying star, with quantum signatures suggesting thousands of ships and structures phased between dimensions. "Their entire civilization exists in a quantum flux state," Wong explained, highlighting various energy patterns. "They're not just using quantum harmonics for weapons, they live between realities." Admiral Harrison studied the tactical projections. Even with their recent victory, a direct assault seemed impossible. The Voidborn would have every advantage in their home territory, where the very fabric of spacetime danced to their tune. "How many ships survived Operation Symphony?" he asked. Elena consulted her data pad. 412 operational vessels, mixed human and Concordat. Another 100 could be ready within 2 weeks if we push the repair crews. "Not enough," Tal stated, his crystalline form pulsing with concern. "Even with our quantum harmonic technology, we cannot match their numbers." Lara stepped forward, her form casting prismatic lights across the tactical display. "Perhaps we are thinking about this incorrectly. We have been trying to fight them on their terms, in their space. What if we brought them to ours?" Harrison raised an eyebrow. "You mean force them fully into our reality?" "More than that," Wong interjected, his eyes lighting up with sudden understanding. "Their quantum state isn't just a tactical advantage, it's their survival mechanism. That dying star, they're using quantum manipulation to extract energy from multiple dimensional variants of it simultaneously." Elena leaned forward. "So if we disrupt their quantum field, we don't just defeat their fleet," Harrison finished. "We threaten their entire civilization." The plan that emerged over the next hours was audacious even by human standards. They would use their entire fleet as a massive quantum resonance engine, not to create discord, but to generate a harmony so perfect it would force all of local spacetime into a single, unified quantum state. "It's not enough to disrupt their quantum fields this time," Wong explained to the assembled commanders. "We need to create a resonance so powerful it collapses all quantum possibilities into one reality, ours." The modifications required were extreme. Every ship would need to be linked into a single quantum network, their shield generators and power cores working in perfect synchronization. One mistake in the harmonic calculations could tear their fleet apart at the quantum level. Tal, who had been quiet during the planning, finally spoke. "There is another factor to consider. If we succeed, we will be condemning an entire civilization to a single dimension of reality. Even if they survive, their way of life will be forever altered." Harrison nodded gravely. "Which is why we give them a choice." The next 12 days were a blur of preparation. Ships were modified, crews trained, and a message was prepared: translated into quantum harmonics that the Voidborn would understand. As the fleet made its final approach to the Voidborn system, Harrison recorded humanity's ultimatum. To the Voidborn civilization, he began, "We offer you peace through unity. Join us in single-state reality, end this war, and we will help you adapt. Refuse, and we will collapse all quantum states in this sector. The choice is yours." The response came in the form of the largest Voidborn fleet they had ever encountered, emerging from quantum flux like a storm of dark stars. "Well," Elena commented from her captain's chair, "I guess they made their choice. All ships," Harrison commanded, "begin quantum harmony sequence. Let's show them what happens when the universe sings with one voice." The battle that followed would be remembered for generations across the galaxy. The combined fleet moved in perfect coordination, their quantum harmonics building like a symphony reaching its crescendo. Space itself began to crystallize around them as quantum possibilities collapsed into certainty. The Voidborn fought desperately, their ships phasing in and out of reality with increasing difficulty as the quantum harmony grew stronger. Their weapons, designed to work across multiple dimensional states, became increasingly erratic. Quantum collapse spreading. Wong reported, his voice tense with concentration. 30% of local space stabilized, 40%. On the bridge of the Thunder Child, Elena orchestrated her battle group's movements with precision born of months of combat. Their formations are breaking down. They can't maintain quantum coherence. The Voidborn launched a final, desperate attack. Hundreds of ships attempted to create another quantum singularity, but in the increasingly stabilized spacetime, their efforts backfired catastrophically. "Quantum harmony at critical resonance," Tal announced, his voice carrying across all command channels. Initiating final phase. The combined fleet's energy output peaked, creating a quantum cascade that swept through the entire system like a wave of crystallizing reality. For a moment, every ship's sensors went dark as spacetime reorganized itself into a single quantum state. When they could see again, the scene had transformed. The Voidborn fleet hung motionless in space, their ships fully materialized in normal space for the first time. Their massive Dyson swarm flickered and stabilized, now visible to normal sensors. "We're receiving a transmission," Wong reported, surprise evident in his voice. "They're surrendering." The war ended not with a grand explosion or a heroic last stand, but with a fundamental change in the nature of reality itself. The Voidborn, forced to exist in a single dimension, chose adaptation over extinction. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. The Voidborn, with their unique understanding of quantum physics, joined the Concordat as allies rather than enemies. Their technology, combined with human ingenuity and Concordat precision, led to advances that transformed civilization. Harrison stood with Lara and Tal on the observation deck of the new Quantum Integration Center, watching ships from all three civilizations moving through space together. "We did more than win a war," Lara observed, her crystalline form reflecting the starlight. "We proved that different species, different ways of thinking, different ways of existing, they can all come together to create something greater. That's the real legacy of this conflict," Harrison agreed. "Not the victory, but what we built from it." Tal's form hummed with what humans had learned was laughter. "And to think, it all started because you humans were too chaos-loving for the universe to handle." The stars shone brightly in the quantum-stabilized space, a testament to a future where diversity of thought and approach wasn't just accepted, but celebrated. Humanity had brought chaos to the galaxy, but in doing so, they had helped create a harmony greater than any single species could have achieved alone. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, reality itself sang with a new song, one of unity, possibility, and the endless potential of minds working together across the cosmic divide.